Hey there, it's Fight here with a tutorial on how to do an Ask campaign in Kartra. An Ask campaign simply has really a couple of questions. The first one is, what is your biggest obstacle? And then optionally, and that's what you're seeing up here, what's your biggest obstacle? And then you've got possibly, optionally, a couple of other questions to do a little bit of pre-segmentation, followed of course by name and email. Now, I'm going to show you how to set this up with a bit of a twist. Namely, what I really didn't like was the fact that this initial field, what is your biggest obstacle, is so small. Because really the purpose of an Ask campaign is to get people to elaborate on what their real problem is. And the reason for that is that the underlying philosophy of an Ask campaign is that those who are genuinely interested in a solution will elaborate on their problem. Whereas those who are going, well, it'd be nice to know, they'll give you a quick answer. Well, I'm struggling with list building and that's it. But someone who really wants to build a list, for example, and has encountered all kinds of problems and doesn't know how to do it, they will engage more. They will give you more information. And that way, you know who are the hyper-responsive ones. These are the ones you should be focusing on. And what I've done is I've created a text area as opposed to this single line here. It's here. So you've got the same form, just with a big text area. This one is here as a demo thing, right? This is one that's no longer used. I'll chuck that out in a second. It's just to show you that basically this initial field, what's your biggest obstacle, is now being replaced by this big field at the top. So that's what this tutorial is about. Incidentally, I'm not a CSS expert, and unfortunately, I haven't figured out how to make this font the same as this, and possibly the nice round corners the same as this here by default. If you know how to do that, fantastic. Please, share it down below. Anyway, so when you go and create these forms here, you go into your forms over here, you set up your form, and as you can see here, I have form fields, and the typical ones are first name and email. Okay, I've also got these different ones. Text input field, radio button, radio button, radio button. And that's basically what's reflected here. What's your biggest obstacle? And then multiple choice, this one, and this one. Okay, fair enough. The problem, in quotes, is this field here can only be a text field or a radio button or, one of these input fields. So if I were to go in and create a new field, custom field, create a new custom field, and down here, you can only see text input field. You don't see a text area. That's the big problem here. And that's what this workaround is. Or radio button, or check button, or drop-down menu. So, this, by the way, is how you set up your custom fields. The process I've just showed you. Anyway, there's your, there's my biggest obstacle. And now we want to go about... now, you could take this and embed it into your page and everyone is happy. But I'm not happy because I want to have a big input field here. So the process for doing this is you create your form, you go to your pages, and you publish your page, and then you look at the source code. Because this form will create a nice, self-contained piece of code or sort of lump of HTML code that has all the formatting and everything you need in it. So when you go to your page, it looks something like this here. Ignore the blah, right? What you need to look for is this here, where it says div data minus component equals opt-in. That's where you start, and namely the line immediately after it. These three lines here are what makes the form pretty, and this from starting from form going all the way to the end of form. So this is where you need to look for, right? And it starts at form up here. This is where the form starts, and this is where the form ends. All of that is the form functionality, and the three lines above it are the prettification. So what you need to do is you basically look at the source code of your page, and you grab all of this code, so the three lines above it and the entire form, and then the three lines below it, this div, div, div. All of that is basically your original form. And now we're going to go and change this form. Really, all we're going to do is we are going to look for the line that says, here's your input field for the biggest obstacle. So as you may recall, in here it says, what's your biggest obstacle? This field I want to chuck out. So later on, when I insert this code, I'm going to go for biggest No, hang on, there. Right. So there is an input field here inside this whole form thing, starting from here. Right? There is an input field that says, what's your biggest obstacle? And it goes from here to here. This field, basically, we'll chuck out, and then above this whole thing, we'll insert a text area, which is this thing. Now, what we need to do is we need to do two things. First of all, this input field has a name, namely this one here, right? Name equal custom for. That's when you go in and you create your custom fields, like I showed you before. Is it still open? Yeah. When you go and create the new fields, they will be given names internally, and we need to use those to connect our forms together or our fields together. So when we look at the source code, this line here, this input field, there it is. It has a custom or a name, custom underscore something. So you need to remember what this is. You just write down custom underscore for. And then you can basically chuck out this whole thing. Now, the other thing we need to do is, because we're kind of above it inserting a new text area, that text area needs to know what the name of this form is. The odd thing is, Kartra doesn't by default give it a name. So we just need to go in and say, by the way, well, I can't type in here, but we just give it a name. We type ID equals, and then in colon, or yeah, in quotes, the name we want to give it. So that's really all we're doing. Above here, we are creating an opt-in form, a text area. We give it, or we say which form to use, namely this one down here, and we give it a name, which happens to be this name here. And then we chuck out this line here, the whole input line, and that's about it. So I'll show you now how to do that in practice, right? So we go in and we copy everything from below this data component opt-in, and we go all the way to the end of our form plus the next 3 lines down here. Copy this, and now we can go to our pages. And where am I? Oh, here's a page I happen to be open. happen to have open, right? So I'm going to okay, here's an example I did earlier, but I'll start from the beginning so you see this in practice. First you go to your code and you grab one of these little codey things and you stick it in here. All right, there we go. Then you edit this and put that in between these two divs. So everything we've just copied from our page, all of this form stuff, we can now put in here, in between sort of this opening div and this closing div. There it is. So like I said, we need to do two things. We need to remove this input field because it's no longer needed, and that is kind of here in the middle. There's my input. What's your biggest obstacle? Da 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 da, and I find the end of it. Here it is. So input starts with this sort of pointy bracket and ends over here. And the only thing I remember is the name equals custom underscore for. So out it goes. Thank you very much. If I were to publish this now, actually I will, let's do this. What you'll see here is, there it is. That's the form minus the initial field. Hey, what is your big question? So now I'm going to go in and do something else. And I'm going to give this wonderful form I've just created an ID. So ID equals ID equals whatever, whatever my form. There you go. So now this form has a name. In this case, whatever my form. Okay, I save this. Cool. And now I can go in and create a form above it. Now, I've already done one. It would be the same thing. I just grab some code, put it up here, and edit this code. I'm just going to go and pretend. Oh, actually, let's move this up here. So that's the one above it. There we go. And now we look at this. So in here, I have this very simple line. Ignore all of this above here. Again, it starts with a div, it ends with a div, and in here there's a line that says text area name equals custom for. So that was the field we took out. That was the what is your biggest question. That's how the two connect. Now, when I submit my form, the the submit button knows where to send that data, namely put it into the what is your biggest question field. So this is what tells it where to send it, and then to connect to the form, here it says my user form. Well, here I would now put in, whatever my form. And now the two are connected. This blah up here is because I wanted this thing to be 100% wide. Actually, there's a padding of 1%, so width 99% and padding of 1%. And I want this thing to have 15 rows. First I tried, columns equals whatever, 60. And then, of course, it's never nicely responsive. It looks odd on a desktop. It doesn't look odd on it goes beyond the edge on a mobile device. So I've just gone with 15 rows, and I've added this bit up here. Right, this is how you do some styling. If you're really good at CSS, I'm sure you can actually do it in here. You don't need this extra style tag, but hey, look, it works for me, so whatever, it works. So now I've got this thing connected to whatever my form, and custom for is where the data is going to be sent, and everyone is happy. And now when I publish this whole thing, I end up with a page that looks a little bit like this, where, okay, I didn't publish it. This is one I created earlier, so this field is still in here, but you get the idea. So this text is now up here, all of this, and when I now go in and submit this whole thing, so my biggest problem is that Kartra doesn't yet allow text areas. And now I come to my thank you page, but more importantly, I go to my subscribers, and where are my leads? These are all test leads. There is the one I just submitted, BB16. And BB16 now has this text in here. My biggest problem is that Kartra doesn't yet allow blah 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 blah. And the whole thing was inserted in a, well, no, not on the thank you page, but in this big box. So there you go. Big picture. It is possible to do these forms, even bigger picture. I don't know how to style them in the same style as this. If someone knows how to do it, please leave a comment down below for all of us. But more importantly, the process is to go and create your form with your custom fields. That creates internal reference numbers. They're called custom underscore something. Then you publish it. And once you've published it, you go to the source code. That looks a little bit like this. You look for the data component equals opt-in. You grab everything below it, including the first 3 lines, starting the form and then going all the way to the end of the form down here, plus the 3 divs. You take that and you copy that into a, no, of course not here, into your page. Where is my, is my manual opt-in form? I need to go and fix this whole thing again because it's completely messed up after doing this demo. But the important thing is you grab one of these HTML or my code elements at the bottom. Come on, page builder. There, grab this code thing, you pull it over. Oh man, my kids are hogging the internet. The joy of half term. So you put it in here. This form is now no longer a proper component form pulled in, but it's actually HTML code. In it, you need to edit 2 things, namely the name of the form, or the ID of the form, because that is something you're going to use in your text area, and you need to remove the opt-in field, and then you go into your create an extra, your code, you pull it over here, and that's above it, that's where you have your biggest question. And then it's a very simple text area. That's really all it is. You give it a name, namely the name of the variable. You connect it to the form by using the same form as used in your form. And if you want to use the width thing, you add this little bit of style code above it, and everybody is happy. I would, of course, be even happier, and I'm sure we all would be, if dear developers at Kartra, why did you add this as an option when I'm creating my forms instead of just a text, an input field? I don't see why we can't have this. I had to do it all manually, but really a simple drop-down choice of text area, perhaps with a bit of styling, like actually, it could just be at 100%. Leave it at 100% if necessary, but the styling required would be the height, and that's it. And I can guarantee there would be so much happiness, because when you look at Trello, is that it? No, that's not it. That's where was Trello? Here we go. Look at this here: surveys, quizzes, 448 people. I don't see that number anywhere. I don't see anything with over 100. Oh, actually, there's one. Right, there are two. But this is by far the most popular thing. Tons and tons of comments. People want this, and this process, or this, having these fields would be absolutely essential. Anyway, there you go. Hope it's useful. Go and have some fun. Cheers. Bye.